You're hitting the gym, you're noticing some changes, but it's just not shaping out right in the mirror. You're pudgier than you thought, and the muscle that you do have is round and soft instead of hard and rough. The thing is, just like there's different subsets of fitness and weightlifting, there's also different subsets of bodybuilding. If you want to look and feel like a warrior, then you gotta train like one, and not some fluffy office bodybuilder. So here's what's needed. You do need the basics of bodybuilding. You need all of the bodybuilding basics. If you don't know all of them, or if you're confused on what's needed, what's not, feel free to go check out my checklist in the description below. It's gonna have all of the basics that you do need. So now once you have the basics of bodybuilding down, you understand, okay, you gotta train each muscle group twice a week and all of the other stuff. Now it's time to get into what separates this build from someone who's, a pudgy office bodybuilder. So the first big one that I want to give away is, when it comes to training, is that you want to be training high rep compound movements. So I know a lot of us associate compound movements with, big burly power lifters or big burly strongmen, those really fat but really strong kind of lifters. And yes, that is true to some extent. Obviously those guys do utilize compound movements, but the reason they look like that is because they train for strength in low rep ranges. Even most bodybuilding routines, if they do include compound movements, they mostly make it about strength work at the start of your workout instead of actually using it for the hypertrophy gain. What a lot of these don't take into account is that compound movements are high efficiency movements, working the most amount of muscles at once. This will allow you to maximize the stimulus onto your body using the same amount of energy as a traditional bodybuilder. You get a far greater stimulus than that person does. Especially once you get to a little bit more advanced level, like once you get to the higher ends of beginner, the start of intermediate, the sheer volume and stimulus that you'll get from doing these movements is going to be responsible for massive amounts of growth in short periods of time. And you can spend, just like I did, the majority of your workout on just one exercise. Because of, how efficient it is, you're just going to be putting a greater stimulus onto your body. You're going to be building more muscle mass and in return less fat. Let's compare the compound lifter version of you versus the office lifter version of you. Both of you train with the exact same energy, the exact same effort. This guy's going to have less of a stimulus than you are. You both eat 3,000 calories. He's going to build some muscle and some fat. You're going to build more muscle and less fat than he did from all the stimulus that you put onto your body. The next big thing is, when it comes to office bodybuilders, they do actually do a lot of things right. They show up, especially when it comes to consistency, especially when it comes to body, especially when it comes to diet. They're doing those correctly, and they're also training, close enough to muscular failure to see the growth, obviously. Now the thing is, when you compare someone like a traditional office bodybuilder, compare that to someone with a very, very athletic background. The person with the athletic background is just going to train a lot harder. Anyone who's played sports knows this, training for sports is a lot more difficult than, the gym. The gym, it requires, some level of effort. I'm talking about the training, the actual, lifting the weights. When you're training for sports, you're training until you're dog tired, then you're being pushed even further, and you're getting like 30 seconds to recover, and you keep being pushed over and over again. Training for muscular failure is not that difficult. You just push until you can, and that's it. You've accomplished the training part of it. And so when it comes to the training aspect of it, you just gotta train harder, and it's naturally going to happen because you're going to be doing compound movements close to failure. That's going to put a larger tax onto your body. It's going to create a greater stimulus. It is going to be more risky. You are going to be more injury prone. You are riding that red line a little bit closer than the office bodybuilder would be. And on top of that, it's just going to be a lot less fun, a lot more, digging through the burn, digging through that little bit of pain. I know a lot of people like to discuss about, all you need is RPE8, and it's true, RPE8 is all you need. However, training harder is just going to get you more gains. God's not there with the magic wand. Okay, did he get RPE8? He get RPE8? No, the harder you train, the more stimulus you're going to have. It's really that simple. Do you really think the version of you who trained to RPE8 is going to look the same as the version of you who trained, till they literally could not lift the weight one more time? If you want to look hard, you got to train hard. It's as simple as that, and it's common sense. Now, with that being said, do I have any hatred towards it? Do I think that, office bodybuilders are do I have any kind of hate towards that? Do I think that it's wrong to be like that? No. And I think that's very optimal, in fact, for a lot of people. especially who live sedentary lives. That kind of process, that kind of physique is very achievable, very replicable, and very commendable too. But this video is just to say, for anyone who wants to have more of that warrior build, look a little bit more ripped naturally, then you want to be training like a warrior. You want to be, maximizing the stimulus onto your body. You want to be pushing yourself as hard as you can. And that's how you're going to maximize the muscle gains and inversely reduce the fat gains. Lastly, I just want to say, a lot of people, associate those kind of fluffy builds versus this build. They think it's all diet. It's not really diet. My diet's not clean. I drink beer twice a week. I don't count macros. I eat what I feel like eating. The biggest difference, it's not really to do with your diet. As long as you're getting your protein and as long as you're getting the calories, it's not the diet that's going to make your body optimize the growth for what it needs to see, for what you want to see. It's going to be the training that's going to optimize the growth for exactly what you want to see. Your training is the scalpel. Your training is what's going to sculpt it. The diet is just going to provide the stone. If you really want to mold your body into the exact physique you want, you got to work really hard for that. And I know it's very hard, and I know it's not going to be for everyone, but that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you found it useful. Please subscribe to stick around for more content like this. I help guys go from skinny to jacked. So if that sounds like you, subscribe to stick around for more content that'll help you out in the future. Check out my checklist in the description below for all the basic muscle building strategies that you need to follow if you want to see the gains. If you can do that, then you can be confident that you're going to get at least another 15 pounds of muscle mass. Other than that, like the video if you did, and I'll see you in the next one.